Hello there. It's good to be back on, even though I'm still not completely cured. Some of these types of flu are just so tenacious. Last time I spoke to you at any length was Thursday. Today is Tuesday, yes. The 9th or 10th of April, which is it? Can we see? Yes, we can. Even in the middle of filming, even though there's, I'm doing this, it's the 9th of April today. That time, I was congested and I was feeling like, I'll have to just, make it up as I go along, which I did. Turned out to be rather, for me, myself, rather a satisfying type of video, because I got to go into the soul retrieval thing, into the soul theme, and all that, and a bit more of my personal, thoughts about that. And I've started a new journal type booklet. This is everything that has to do with soul for me. So that includes soul retrieval and soul parts and stuff. It's going to get even more weird. Oh yes, there's no end to the weirdness. Weirdness is just, you can go up the graph as far as you like until you reach ultimate weirdness. I'm paraphrasing the penguins. The what was it? Maximum coolness. That's what it was. Well, this is maximum weirdness, I think. Each time I think this is the furthest I've gotten. This is the weirdest I've done so far. But each time there's still a next step. So, I still sound slightly congested. I am. I'm going to go for an extensive walk this afternoon because I need to get me some exercise, and I've got a couple of little, shoppings to do and stuff. Not out of town, but because I'm still, a bit tired and stuff. But I just have to get a move on and get out, and the sun is shining, sort of. It's very decent, very spring-like outside, so no more sitting at home. Because there's one little item that I thought I should also share. The hormonal cycle for women, for you girls out there, okay, who are still in a situation pre-menopause where you have a cycle, okay? Have you ever noticed that when you get the flu, that there are moments in the cycle where the flu just seems to come back? Maybe it's quite straightforward and ordinary. I don't know, I've never heard people talk about this, but I find that quite noticeable because Thursday last, when I did the long soul vlog, I was actually feeling a bit better than I am today. And in between that, there has been this ovulation thing, and it looks like at that time and for 2 days or so, my body is actually weaker because I am supposed to be ovulating, and all my energy goes to that instead of into me. And the same thing happens, or tends to happen, at the onset of menstruation. It's the same. There's like a window of maybe 2 or 2.5 days or so where I actually feel very much less strong than before and after. There's like a dip in, in the fitness thing. And whenever there's, so now like I have got this little flu bug here, it's bound to take advantage of the situation. Damn it. I don't like it anymore. So there's nothing really I can do other than just take care of myself and see to my vitamin C, because I had an apple just now and I pressed me a grapefruit. Fresh home pressed juice is the best thing there is. I firmly believe vegetables, all that has to be in there, and then it'll sort itself out. I just have to be patient, which is like almost impossible, especially when I don't feel so fit and I've got all these other things. Because the other thing, I had just sort of finished talking to you guys about my nice, pretty witch's stones and the self-care bit and all that, and how fond I am of my witch's stones. Let's pull a stone to, see. The stone for this vlog will be... I'm sticking my fingers into the topaz now. This one. What do we get? Of course, I drop it first. We get the moon. The moonstone. Okay, so you stay there. You watch over us. Watch over me. After that, okay, I remembered, I think Friday afternoon, I was going into the bath, wanted something to read other than Sherlock Holmes, which I still haven't finished, but I wanted something lighter because my Sherlock Holmes book is like this big lump of a thing, it's short stories, so I was going to drop that into the bath. So I said to myself, I want something else, and for some reason, there was a reason, I don't remember at the moment, at this time, what it was. I was reminded of a book that I have, which is over there on the table, about travelers. And it's a French book. Sorry, there'll be a bit more of that, I think. Travelers and symbolism. The symbols that traveling people use themselves. Yes, bear with, I'll get the book. Because I can just as well show it to you. La symbolique gitane. It's French. So there's going to be a bit more French bits coming and passing in here in this story. I hope I'm already 7 minutes in. I hope I'm going to make this short and sweet. I remembered that I had this book somewhere in my bookcase, so off I went, got it. I started reading it, and I'm really interested in this because there's all sorts of references and stories and symbols, and this is a symbol for, it says, a Spanish Almeria based symbol for gypsy man, and names for the peoples, and for some reason there's tarot in here as well. It's kind of cool. So yeah, enjoyable. However, I was like 10 pages in that I'm reading in my bath, my bathtub, and all of a sudden it's like a dime dropped down into my brain. What if this past life experience that I've reconnected with, that I've described several times already, what if she, that is like this precursor of me, this historical person who I actually connect so strongly with and who's actually got so much to offer me, what if this was a gypsy woman or a traveler woman of some type, of some such origin? And that thought like took root in my brain, and whether it is true or not, whether it is a fact or not, whether I will ever be able to establish any such thing, all this is hypothetical. I'm not into, I believe only this, and so of course I do not believe what's on this side. I will believe anything. I will learn from anything, from everywhere, as long as I feel like there's progress, there's movement, there's stuff going on, there's things, things are moving, then I'm okay with that. So all this is really very hypothetical. But the thought of this past self of me being of some form of traveler descent, okay, tinkers, traveling people, Roma, Sinti, whatever, any one of those, it's in the distant past. All of the problem is there's several reasons why I think that's quite a possibility. There's a set of reasons that has to do enormously with my personal preferences in my life. And if you bear this in mind, just remember that I have this thing with the gypsy. I'm not the only one, I know. Then a lot of the stuff that you see on my channel is going to kind of make sense in that context. It's kind of going to help the way I look at things, the way I persistently, want apparently to look at things in a way that's different from the accepted lifestyle. So I took notes. I went ahead and took notes of elements that I'm just going to call Roma elements, okay? If you're Roma, if some of you that are watching this are of Roma descent, I'm only using the name like temporarily to refer to something that I haven't really got any personal, physical, direct experience with in this life, other than chance encounters or people I've known for a short while. I am trying not to do the assuming thing or the cultural appropriation thing, but there's strong motivations within me why I feel like I've got something here. I've got something because. So nothing of what I'm going to say in the next 20 minutes or so is supposed to reflect on what Roma life or gypsy life or traveler life is like now. Nothing that I'm saying is supposed to, from my intention, reflect on you. I'm also telling myself this again because I think it's really important. I am working from emotions, memories, impressions, and other such volatile materials. So I'm only stating things that belong to me, okay? Just to make sure. I'm going through this list. I've got a list of like traits and things that I have sort of pinpointed in my own life, or moments or things people have said to me, etc., that connect me to a style of life that is very different from, for all intents and purposes, Gajo life, which is like the life of Goyim. If you look from the Jewish perspective, there's the Jewish Yiddish people, which I'm slightly part of, also slightly, and then there's the others. There's the sedentary, tradition-based, larger group of people, groups of people that have sort of decided to not decide in some ways. And I'm going to make a mess of this if I go on any further into political correctness or incorrectness. Never mind. I'm just going to go ahead with my list right now. So, in no particular order of importance, because all this was just raining through my mind like this, okay? I've got no relationship with money or possessions. That's my first thing on my list here. I don't know what money means. When I've got it, I spend it. Or after a while, I realize I may need to spend it later on something else. So it might be nice to save some. I do save. Or my husband does it nowadays because I tell him. I'm the one who actually does the telling. But other than that, I can't make money. I can't do a trade or present myself to the world in a way that I get paid for what I do. In that way, I have no relationship with money. And my possessions tend to be decks of cards and stuff like that. I'm really, always have been very much into things that are portable. So when I talk about my decks, the first thing that comes to my mind is if my house burns down, and I get a chance to, for 5 minutes, to grab stuff, I will grab my decks. And I've always been, I haven't really been, very bothered by scenarios like that, because I don't really get, my house doesn't so far burn down. I'm quite a lucky person as well. So I feel that I'm lucky, which is also, I think, a traveler approach to life. Not having to own anything, and then at the same time to be lucky, to be like having a protector, being protected in some way that makes you lucky, that makes that you kind of engage in things and they turn out okay. So everything is always okay somehow. I'm a firm believer in that. Everything around me is okay, and everything that's bad is temporary. It'll just pass. It'll always pass. So in the context of that, I am still very much a believer in portable things. So everything that I own that's important to me should be portable. So this type of, gemstones, crystals, jewelry, cards, and that type of stuff. I am rather unconventional in many ways, in the sense that I'm against conformism. So when I'm a fierce advocate of personal sovereignty, and I don't believe that people should obey anything for any reason. You can do what your mum tells you or your dad tells you, as long as that's healthy, whatever is going on at the time, because your parents supposed to look out for you and have more experience in life. So if they just tell you to blah, then you should blah, and then afterwards figure out why. But you should always figure out why. And so I have this really weird distance between myself and anything that is conventions, conformity, officialdom. I am really mistrustful of everything that's official. I go into clandestine, proceedings with things. So that's also a reason why I don't work. I don't work other than what you see me do. I used to have a job at some point, but that's for a certain period in time, and I was working for a company that jived with what I was doing at the time. So that was almost the same, because they were also really unconventional people in many ways. So I'm fond of driving. I'm fond of public spaces. I can hang around hotels and restaurants and pubs for a large part of my life. I have a really hard time settling anywhere. I have lived in this particular house for 5 years. It's almost 6 years now, I think. And I still have to tell myself in so many words, this is my home. I stay here. This is okay. This is where I'm going to be for another while. I can afford to connect to the place. It happens when I tell myself, I feel like my heart opens and I'm really grateful and all that, but it's not something that's automatic with me. I used to wear long skirts, the wavy long skirts. I used to love dancing. It's not really something I do at the moment, but it can come back anytime, really. Have a sip of water. The interesting thing is that if I assume that there's a layer inside of me, in my consciousness, that has these connections, the connection to a traveler nature, let me put it that way, then that kind of explains why I haven't auto-destructed, if that's a word, with my upbringing, my parents, the way my parents treated me, the way my parents treated each other, and all that. Being sort of a traveler has helped. And that's an interesting viewpoint to me. Picking up stuff from the streets. If I see, not just money, if I see somebody's left a lighter in the street, I don't know about you guys, but I will check if the lighter still works. I'll take it home. I will I don't hoard necessarily. I throw stuff away as well, but that's one of the things how I'm not into possessions. I don't think of things as belonging to really to anybody. Oh yeah, at the job, we were supposed to be all about developing ourselves and growing in our lives and becoming homeowners. It's not happening for me. I can't identify with owning a place, owning a house. So the other part of the list would be the Rose Oracle cards. There's recent vlogs on my channel about those that I made that I think are very, very much Gitano, Gypsy in character. There's a couple of memories, people telling me. There's one person who said to me, who had some form of Roma or Sinti background, who listened to me talk, it's ages ago, and she said then, Chase, you sound more like a gypsy than a real gypsy. So that was kind of funny, you know. When I was 12, my mum was in sort of indecision about moving from Holland to the south of Spain that she wanted to do then. And she was hesitating a great deal because she didn't know what to do with whether, you know, I would want that, or because I'd only just gotten settled a bit more living with her again after the divorce and the foster situation, and we'd already moved house several times within the Netherlands. And she felt like, I want to get out of here because of the climate and and the weather isn't helping and so on and so forth. And I was sitting on the couch reading a book that I still got, yes, believe it or not, and it's about gypsies. And I was crying. I was 12. I was crying. And my mum said, what's going on? What's the matter? And I said, Mum, do you want to go travel? So she went like, what are you talking about? So I explained. And she went like, okay, so I can take this child down to the south of Spain. That's apparently okay, because this is what she wants. It's a bit silly. It's a bit after, looking afterwards, you know, maybe it just had to be the way it has to be. So it may not have been such a clever decision at the time, but if it hadn't been then, it would have been later. It was bound to go like this. I am crazy about Romanian and other Eastern European folk music. I crazy love Romanian folk music. And Greek as well. Greek clarinet folk music, that type of thing. The more sentimental and nostalgic, the better. Yeah. Endlessly. I listen to that stuff several times a week, almost every day, always. So that's my go-to music, especially if I have to go and cook in the evening, cook dinner. Yeah, half of the time I will put up some of that type of music, so to keep me company or for whatever reason. If I look at my natal chart, there's quite a bit of adaptability in there. There's, you know, planets in Cancer and Neptune in Scorpio, etc. Somebody at the door, bear with. Yes, I'm back. It's my books. My books got here. My book, singular. Because I only ordered one and they sent me a second one. I will get back to that in a bit, hopefully. I want to get this list done. Endless potential to adapt to change beyond what's in my natal chart. So, more, yeah, I think so. Real good at surviving, I think. So, well done me, right? And well done you also. Because you're here, obviously. The last real circus people, were 2 out of 16 in my, you know, genealogical tree, my family tree. All other people, so 7 out of 8 people really weren't related to travelers or circus or music or any of it. So I've always found that really illogical, that I have this much of this unconventional, romantic, artistic, flowing along with life, taking it in your stride, resiliency and all the rest of it, when what I've grown up with was rather more of the opposite, and very little is of the traveller paradigm, let's just, you hate the word, but never mind, was actually in my genes. There's only this much in my genes, and I've always thought that I should have been a lot more conflicted. There should have been, about having a bit of that, and then 3/4 or the rest of me is just much more attached to groups and stuff. I'm not attached to anybody. So, my mother was way less of... I grew up with my mother until I was 21, and then from 21 to 28 she was still alive, but I was more or less taking care of her regularly because she was an invalid. She was 20 years old in 1954. So she'd sort of, in her 20s and 30s, she'd identified partly with my dad, because my dad was like that. She'd identified with a bohemian, artist type, Paris, impressionists, artistic culture. She felt more or less attracted to that to some extent, and she'd kept on that type of language with me growing up always. So there was a bit more in her that she understood a bit more than she could based on her genes. This is going to be a really lengthy, convoluted tale, and if you're bored, yeah, I understand. It's only going to make sense if you've seen about 10 of my other videos before. So I will put that in the description so that you're warned. You have a bit of warning, because this is a lengthy, blah. My mother was really important to me, and she was slightly a bit of a hippie, but not, because she was already 30 years old. In 64, she was 32 when I was born. So she was older. She was too old to go into the weed and Hendrix and all that. It's the wrong generation. I've got more points. I've got loads of associations, my belief in luck, imagery that stays with me. Can't even read my own handwriting anymore. The thing about men, I'm really, I'm really independent in my mind. I have a hard time. Like I said, I can't deal with conformism. So especially that applies to women a lot, because we're always supposed to behave, be feminine and that type of thing. My mother was good at that. I suck at being feminine. I wear army boots by preference all the time. I don't know how that applies to being a gypsy woman at all, because I think they're quite feminine, most of them, and that's okay. That's just, they have a different approach to life. They have many, as far as I've learned so far, many gypsy women or traveller women are really home-based as well. They have, they move around, some of them, not all of them even, but also not historically, or their families don't necessarily always move around, but they live in their trailers or in their own homes, close to the kitchen area, and they're the caretakers and the caregivers. So I have a collection of taste preferences in art, in that I would think for myself that also go into this whole assuming that what I'm assuming, basically bringing the whole story to a central focus point here, if possible. I'm assuming that there is a stronger tendency towards an unconventional, artistic, non-conformist, non-attached type of life that has been very predominant in the events in my life all of the time, and that has protected me, that has looked out for me, and it doesn't come from within my life. It doesn't come from what you see here. It comes from elsewhere. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. So my assumption now is that this past life has actually a huge amount of traveler content in her, and she has been organizing, whatever that is. I mean, I said in my previous video that she's just a strand of programming. Well, this is the programming as I have encountered it in my own life. I make things that nobody makes. I paint things that nobody taught me how to paint them. I have good genes as far as creativity goes. That helps definitely. But I used to already make and write and do things that my mother back in the day used to say, I don't know where you get this stuff. I have no idea where you get this stuff. You just break out of all the bonds. And I break out of the bonds, but I don't really do abstract things. I don't really do, other than, enjoy painting and, messing around with paint. It's great fun. But I will always paint women, paint birds and flowers and women and, all that. Very, very suspicious. Very suspicious. So these are my points. I'm summarizing here because there's lots more detail, but I'm just going to bore the pants off you with that. No. I don't really know about or relate to any of these other than generally Puritan. Yeah, my normal mental, intellectual framework would be Puritan, Protestant, responsible behavior and choices. That's what my genes should give me. And then there should be this streak of artisticity going through like along the side. And it's not really like that. It's not. I'm way more explosive and way more that I just, I'm just doing my thing here. So this is how far I got with my list, okay, my traits and my things. And I was really happy that I sort of figured out how this was making a lot more sense. Being the way I am, having the traits that I have, working with cards, working with Oracle, making my own witches' runes, just, like that. Having my interactions with things, with people, and the way I do it, especially nowadays, now that I've got my soul retrieval all set up. Also, another interesting bit is that I would assume that my past life person, she who is of the traveller people type then, was actually somebody who didn't read or write. So there's it's of course quite difficult for me to understand what she's on about, because her language goes like this and my language goes like this. I've got much more of an intellectualized, terminology, systematic type of approach to things, which I'm letting go of in part quite a bit of the time. So, but it makes sense to me, all this traveller information okay, this data regarding a personality build-up that has much more to do with the needs and priorities of a traveler type society, life, compared to the life that I'm in. There's quite a bit of difference in language there. There's a bit of, so it explains to me as well that I had a hard time getting like an exchange of information going. There has never been an exchange of information between this me that you see here and my past life person. So I said here, the cloudiness can be explained also by seeing a big cultural difference, she being illiterate and someone whose priorities were wholly different from mine. Her circumstances were wildly different from mine. Everything is different, especially if all that happened in the 14th century. There's just, I have to go down to earth to be with her, which is cool. So there's a bit more that I can say about the situation, how we split up, how her consciousness split off from my consciousness originally. I think we parted shortly after she died, physically in her situation in the hole in the ground, in the dungeon, right there. A part of me broke off and got sent on and incarnated, however, at whatever level in this life, okay? And then I had to go back and claim her or reclaim the contact with her. That was essential to me. I could not be here doing my vlogs, talking to you, interacting with people the way I am doing now if it hadn't been for her. It's only because of her that I'm here, that I'm making sense. Otherwise, it would have been. And that's why I'm also going to all this detail, because I'm really passionate about it. And because I'm wondering all the time when people are into drugs, addicted, helpless, bound into a horrible situation, enslaved in everywhere that you can have that type of situation, then I go, at some point or other, I will go, where's the soul loss? Why are you doing this? Why is this happening to you? Why are you letting them do this to you? Why are you doing this to yourself? And so the whole, aiming for personal sovereignty, and beyond that, integrating some level of communication with your higher self, all that is just. I've experienced what it's like to not have that purpose in life. And now that it's come back to me, I am, guns ablaze. That's what I am. So far, I was making quite a bit of sense to myself, because of course I've been around this with, the cards and the food and the music, and it makes sense. I was happy Friday evening and Saturday morning, and even Sunday a bit, even though I, overdone it slightly, and it was that time of the month and all that, and I was, generally inside of myself, I was quite pleased. So I thought I should really do a bit more investigating as to the whole, gypsy life, the history of traveling peoples through Europe or elsewhere. I thought yesterday, I will just have to go into that, because I really don't know all that much. I'd done a bit of Googling, and I didn't really get other than, this type of book, or I've got a couple of other little books, and I've got a lot of children's books that are about gypsies and travellers as well. So that's quite interesting to me. It is that it's just a recurring theme. It's just coming back again and again. So yesterday I suppose I typed in a search in YouTube about travelers' history, the history of traveling peoples, but I did it this time. I did it in French because this book's in French, and he refers, this author who is a Gitano himself, a Gitan. He refers to a place, a town in the south of France that I haven't really visited, but I'd been Googling about that town because that's where the first groups of travelers ended up in the 14th century and all that. So, long story short, YouTube, Googled, and I got this really well done, oh my God, lecture by a French professor, woman, about languages spoken by several groups of traveling peoples, Roma, Sinti, all those, and common elements in those languages, plus historical background database combined. And so I'm just going to put this all into one video because then we're done, and then I can go for my walk because then we're done. I'm not even sure I'm going to post this because it's just taking forever. She referred to a large group of people, more than 50,000 people, tradespeople in India at one time in the 11th century being deported from around a large area to one city after the sack of another town close by, I think, in the north of India in the 11th century. I was shell-shocked. I still am. I still find that I'm rather shell-shocked here. Because the town where those people, or at least a large number or some number of those people came from, still is the capital of perfume distillery in the north of India. And nowadays is called Clanet. I hope I pronounced that right. I've never been there. I've never been to India or any of it. I've always had a connection with India. I've never really felt the need to go there myself. But the company that I worked for 11 years, which is the only time I worked for money outside, of my relationship with my husband, unconnected with him or any of it, there was an incense company. And they're not based in Canouch, but they're a Dutch company. And they make beautiful products that I still love and use every day. But while I was working there were a couple of things that I remember, and that I'm just going cold here from what the hell is going on here. Because I have been able to hand roll incense from the very first stick I ever made. And I swear to God, I'm not being sentimental. The very first stick I rolled using the agabati method, where you have a bamboo core and a dough made up of several substances and aromatic oils and resins and wood powder, and the real original agabati method, okay? You're supposed to use a bit of a powder, just like flour when you're making cookies. You have a powder that's on your wooden tray, and you hold the bamboo stick in one hand and the little ball of incense dough, really. You just stick that around the bamboo and you just go like this. And you're supposed to have a stick. None of the other guys, my colleagues out there, managed it. Some of them managed it eventually after hours of practice. My first stick was close to perfect. And I love doing it. I've done demonstration for for clients, for groups of clients for 11 years. I've talked about, given workshops, shown people around. Nobody really understood it, and me least of all. And I was completely and utterly obsessed with the nature, the character of the product that I was working with. For me, working there was all about the product. It was always only about the incense. And knew it was going to come to this. Now I'm back in, yes. I'm distracting myself from looking at these little recording gizmos here. I had to split up with those people. Those people had to split up with me because I didn't have a heart and I couldn't relate and I couldn't interact with them properly. And most of it was my fault in a way, except I couldn't see any way to do things differently. And I sucked heartily at most of what I did, I think, back in those days. And it just split up. And I don't talk to them anymore. And I have dreams of meeting the women, mainly the women colleagues, once a week, once every 2 weeks, meeting them and just hugging them and whatever. Back then it was all fake. It wasn't really, because I wasn't really there. It wasn't really me. So this is an important part of my personal life that I've never really talked about yet, because those people are out there and I don't want to mess with them. I don't want to, because there was all sorts of reasons why we overreacted to each other. And nowadays I say it was all there for a reason. That black moon and this black moon, there's a system. It's meant to break your bones. And then you have to live with it and figure it all out and make sense of it. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing here. And I'm using YouTube to make sense of these things. Only I didn't really expect the incense making business and the gypsy business to link up through my past life. If you're still following, I mean, I'm confused. Okay, so I've got another sheet of notes here. There's at Clanet there are distilleries where they make essential oils from flowers and stuff like that, and they especially also do distilling in sandalwood oil, which is called an attar. I was already crazy about attars. My boss at the time thought I was nuts. Why you want to import attars? That's just, it doesn't really, nobody knows what they are, because they were Dutch people in my incense company that I worked for. So they wanted things they could sell, things they could, things that would work for people. They'd already done everything they could, and they were also interested in other things back in the day. They were much more into, development, personal development, and light working type vibrations, and I had to go the long way around, I'm afraid. It says here, I can't normally work well to a method. So sewing, making clothes, not me. I make little bags. I make my bag for my little oracle. That I can do. This is I can manage, but I can't make a shirt to save my life. So pottery, carpentry. Other than cooking, cooking's fine. Cooking I can work to a method, but otherwise I don't use a recipe to cook ever. I make it up as I go along. I know more or less what the end result's supposed to be like, and then I just, ding, 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 and it's done. That's cooking for me. No method. I can roll incense sticks with, because there's a method to that, and I just knew how it worked. Distilling natural products into essential oils and appreciating the character of each. I reacted strongly and emotionally to the old distilleries. Yes, there's photographs on a website that's called White Lotus Aromatics. They've got a picture gallery. It's a bit hidden at the top of the screen of the website. You have to, I think it says images nowadays. It used to be bigger, and then they transport you to another website, and there's all the photographs of the old school fabulous distilleries with fire and wood and burning and then big pots and pans, and just love that stuff. So I also have this India connection thing going on that I can't figure out, because I've never really felt attracted to traveling to India. Other than a couple of holidays like the Caribbean, and I've been to Miami once, mostly with my mother, I've never been outside Europe. I've been all over Europe, but never outside Europe, really. So I've no way of comparing. I've no way of knowing. The scent was real to me. The working for the incense at the time, the realest thing about that was the scent, was the way incense is made and all that, and the way it's the formulas, the secret, the old technique and the old recipes. It was so alive to me. It's just what I'm saying here. My point of my endless tale is there is a point outside of this life, okay, that has the organization, that sees to organizing this whole everything now. Everything is still, I'm just following along in the tracks that are made by that part of me, whatever that means. So I've got the book. We're going to get to the book. Yes, I've done all my past life shizzle. That's it. I still find it really strange that there's the gypsy traveller thing and there's the incense thing, because I don't see a connection between those two. Maybe there was a special cast. There was a special cast that there was this lady on the YouTube lecture that I watched yesterday. She said there were casts for everything. There's still casts for everything in India. Everybody has trade, and the trade makes that you belong to a certain caste, and you have to stick to your caste, because otherwise you don't get blah blah, and so on and so forth. The funny thing is that she referred very distantly at one point to, if you move away from your caste and from the region where you were born, as defined by the river that is closest, that you are associated with, you and your family. If you move away from those, if you migrate, you do not reincarnate, and you come back a ghost. I freaked myself out now. I am freaking myself out. I'm just putting this out there for knowledge, because you gotta believe in something. So I ordered this book on my local Amazon shop, nl.nl, and it's called Rain. And it says here, I'm going to read to you what it says on the back. I will have no throat left. Cynthia Barnett will make a rain fanatic out of anyone. Science. It is the subject of countless poems and paintings, the top of the weather report, and the source of the world's water. Yet this is the first book to tell the story of rain. Rain begins 4 billion years ago with the torrents that filled the oceans and weaves together science, the true shape of a raindrop, the mysteries of frog and fish rains, with the human story of our ambition to control rain, from ancient rain dances to attempts to blast rain out of the sky with mortars. Rain is also a travelogue, taking readers to Scotland to tell the surprising story of the Macintosh raincoat, and to India, where villagers, and there you get it, extract the scent of rain from the monsoon-drenched earth and turn it into perfume. Too much and not enough, rain is a shared experience, a unifying force in a fractured world. That sounds good. Oh. As climate change upends rainfall patterns and unleashes increasingly severe storms and drought, rain's history has much to tell us about coming together to adapt in stormy times. I will let you know when I am done reading this. It's rather a bit more about the climate and less about the distilleries than I expected, because I found a quote about the distilling business and that's how I got to this. So it should be entertaining. It should be less of an immediate, comic upheaval, I hope. And I thank you again for watching. I'm just under 1 hour here. Yes, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking along. And I'll be back at some point soon with more easier things. It will get easier, I'm sure. At some point it will get easier. Thank you. Bye-bye.